Hi, Allah.
Hello.
Like 2 weeks ago, we started doing this weekly talk
Sure.
about the Torah portion, and we didn't do it last week
Sure.
because we determined our own schedule,
Yes.
and somehow it didn't happen. And I want to connect it to this portion.
Sure.
The whole book is about Exodus, is about slavery.
Sure.
And one of the things that differentiate between a slave and a master is the ability to set your own schedule. And even though you don't have, it's internal.
Sure.
And so the slave needs someone to tell him what to do, so that it will work, and the master is determining his own schedule.
Sure.
And this is one of the challenges that I face. And in this portion, like last portion, it was the beginning of the plagues, and then in this portion, it's like the last three, and then we move. This is like we move from the story to a list of commandments of like how they should. God gives Moses the instructions of what's going to happen when they run away from Egypt. They should like prepare bread in a hurry. They should take gold and from their Egyptian neighbors. Then they should slaughter. They have a sacrifice. They should slaughter, and it's like you have like 20 commandments in this portion. I think it's the first collective commandments, and for me, this is the essence of this is the beginning of the redemption.
Sure.
And the idea is that God is one and abstract, but we need to. But it's not passive, and we get tools to get self-discipline and from within, and this is the idea. So in Islam, we also have like we pray, for instance, like 3 times a day.
Sure.
And we have like all days that are connected to the cycle, and we have so many commandments. It's very. So do we have also in the Quran like the things that you should like the prayers? What do we have in the Quran, like in terms of commandments?
Commandments and praying. Well, there's really 5 pillars / commandments, and this is what creates a complete Muslim. The first one is the declaration that there's only one God, and accepting that his last messenger is Muhammad. So the second one is charity, zakat. You give a percentage of your income to charity to those less fortunate. You pray 5 times a day, and you also, at some point in your life, if you're able to, you make Hajj or pilgrimage to Mecca. There you're able to congregate basically with Muslims from all walks of life and all over the planet to see that your Lord, as it says in the Quran, created all of mankind. And there you can see all of mankind coming together. All the colors, all the languages, different heights and what have you, or I should say just different human beings. And you see the greatness of God and the strength of God and the power of God in all of his creations. And then so the 5 pillars are there.
So the 5 pillars is like
Shahada, which is the declaration that there is no God but God and Muhammad is his prophet. There's the zakat, which is giving charity.
Do you have to give a certain sum, or is it
Some say you hear 2%. This is debated. But it's essentially give what you can, you know. And for some people with very little, that small amount means a lot more to them. So that's true charity. Charity is really giving away what you need, as opposed to if you're really wealthy and you give a small amount, you call that charity. Charity is kind of you feel in what you gave, and that is part of you feeling that you're blessed and blessed enough to share. You pray 5 times a day, and then the fasting. I might have Ramadan
Ramadan is also
for
fast.
30 days. Yeah, you fast from sunrise to sunset. You essentially abstain from all food, drink, sex. And the point is, there's many points in it. Is one, to learn patience. Two, to also be appreciative of what you have. Because when it's taken from you or it's kept away from you, you realize the blessings you have that you might just take for granted. Um, it helps you also connect to the community because with fellow fasters, you get together in the evening a lot of times, and it brings families together to break the fast. And there's the night prayer during Ramadan, which can last, for some people, they'll do it for 30 minutes. Some people will spend 4 or 5 hours doing it. And essentially, it's just, again, a communal event, people coming together, praying together. And some people love that month because it just brings people together in a way like no other month does for Muslims.
Yeah.
And then,
it's very intense.
Yeah, it is. It is. But in many ways, you think it makes you weak. It actually makes you strong. And now it's a fad with like new health plans and diet plans. Intermittent fasting is actually scientifically proven to be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Your body cleanses itself. You get away from bad habits. Your mind is crystal clear. You see the world differently. You behave differently. You're just in a different state of mind. And when you go back to after the month to your normal lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
generally you've been changed. You're not the same person you were going in.
You do it? You fast?
Yeah. Can't say I always did, but I do. And I did this last one every day. And it was wonderful. It was also the first time I've ever fasted in a country that, at least by name, is majority Muslim.
Where did you
Turkey.
In
I was
Turkey.
here, yeah. So, to be able to, and it was also during the pandemic, Corona, because you weren't able to be out. There was a lot of lockdowns going during that period. So they would bring bread into the community. You would hear them and go downstairs to purchase bread. A lot of people would drop the baskets, You were able to go out a few days a week sometimes to go get just food and at least have enough food for the fast. So you're at home all day. Everybody's situation is unique. For me, I was in a home full of Muslim students, and just to see all of us fasting and praying together was its own unique experience. And so, never experienced that before. And then again, as I touched on, the last part is to go to Mecca, the Hajj, the gathering. Essentially, go, and there is where the Quran, at least the beginnings of the Quran, were revealed to the Prophet. And you see essentially that all the various tribes on earth come together, and it's just a very large gathering of people from everywhere. And now that term, the Mecca, is used in, at least in the English language, to represent any large gathering, the Mecca of this, the Mecca of that, the Mecca of this. And it's a very, they say, transformative event. People go with something in mind of what they think is going to be. And then when they go and come back, they're like, it's exactly so different than anything I imagined. And what do you think? They're like, I can't go back to living the way I was before. It's for the first time I saw, Islam as a global movement and practice on that scale. So it changes, humans. And yeah, those are the 5 pillars. And then obviously there's other commands later on, like refrain from pork, refrain from sex out of marriage, refrain from marrying, like you cannot marry your sister, you can't marry your mother, you can't marry. It's very specific, yeah. And there's restrictions on what you can do and then things that you should do. So yeah, the 5 pillars I would say are the foundation of what a Muslim is.
And it's very community-based. It's not like praying alone. It's not like praying in a group. And like Friday in Arabic is Jumu'ah. It's like, which means community. What
community, Jumu'ah, it comes from like Jamma, or to bring together. So it could be community, to bring together. And then your Lord God tells us that in His eyes, it's more beautiful when you're praying as a group to Him. Because the idea is community. It's not an isolationist religion. Yeah. It's not about building a monastery or a mosque in the mountain and being alone. It's the exact opposite. You build a mosque in the center of the city. And invite everybody and anybody, even the to essentially come to their Lord and have what prayer is just moments of reflection, you know.
And also like the times of the 5 prayers, they're also connected to like how do you determine the times when people pray?
We have it's the sun. It's the sun, and it changes by the day. I don't want to be misquoted, or excuse me, but it's usually a few minutes on. It changes a few minutes each day. So the fajr is the break of light, or when the sun is about to rise. And then you have your afternoon prayer, then you have your late afternoon prayer, then you have your evening prayer, and then you have your night prayer. So essentially it's revolving around the sun when it comes up and goes down, and then where it is, during the afternoon. Prayers on average can take, like the morning prayer could take, you can do it as quickly and as fast and as slowly as you want, but you can get it done realistically in about 3 to 5 minutes,
Did you pray? Did you pray before? Like,
yeah.
did you watch the...
Yeah, you wake up. Yeah, so when you pray, you should also be clean. So part of the ritual of prayer is you need to wash. You wash your hands, you wash your face, you wash your nose, you wash your mouth, ears, your head, your arms as well, and then also your feet up to your ankles. So essentially when you go into prayer, you have to be clean. And they say during the, Black Plague or the Black Death here in Europe centuries ago, why it didn't affect the Muslim world as much is because people were, on average, much cleaner.
The same with the Jews. This is why they blamed them of the Black Plague, because they were hurt much less.
Yeah. And you could see, if you look at today, the pandemic, the top 10 nations, Turkey, I think, is number 7 right now because of scale, but, the majority of the ones that are affected the most are really Muslim countries.
I think that also they have all the other advantages in Turkey, that they eat much better, because also even poor people eat vegetables here, because we are on a rich soil, which is and we have the community and the family mentality. So like we're in Istanbul, this is we don't see any homeless people. There are not any homeless people. And one of the most inspiring things that they have here, that you can get into every bakery, and if you don't have money, even if you're stuck without money, you will always get bread. It's an Ottoman law. And so there is the immune system is, of course, it is connected to your nutrition and to your emotional strength. And you have it here. More than India, even more than Indian, which maybe today is after we discovered it. Like, when did they discover the importance of water? 18th century.
The importance of water?
Yeah,
I think since humans have been around, you can't live without water.
But it's like in medicine, when they discovered it,
it's hard. I can't.
I don't know. I need to check, but maybe not. But the emotional and benefit of living in a community and is very, very important to the immune system. Whereas in the U.S., like lower classes, they eat the worst maybe in the world ever, and they don't have a community. And they have no bakery to go to and get like free food.
No.
And the homeless people are like, homelessness is not really, really, really right in the U.S. now. After COVID, it became another pandemic.
It's just, there's tent cities in various American cities. They're essentially villages within the city. They're micro communities. They're everywhere. So hard to manage. They don't have, a lot of them don't have restroom facilities and what have you. So when you're in the city, there's a really bad smell. A lot of very dirty. It's really bad. And like a lot of people, like I grew up in San Francisco, and there's a lot of reasons behind it, but there's a lot of people who come to San Francisco because of all the movies and TV shows and Silicon Valley and everything they hear, that are in shock, because a lot of the touristy areas where all the hotels are also very, very close. We're talking about a block which let's just say is about 50 meters, 100 meters maybe, is to just areas of nothing but tents and people sleeping on the street and drug usage. And it's just, people are a bit shocked to see this so-called wealthy city where people are upstairs in these buildings paying essentially what would be a mortgage for a mansion in most of America. And down below, you're seeing so much, not one or two, in the thousands of people living in abject poverty under the worst conditions that could be equivalent to a refugee camp somewhere in a war zone. You know what I mean? So,
so maybe this is part of the reason that the US is so bitten by COVID now.
We have
or other places in
for
the
sure.
West.
I mean, we don't have universal health care. We're overwhelmed in some cases, I'm sure. A lot of public hospitals, because of the drug usage, most of the time the patients are dealing with are from overdose. And they're dealing with a lot of the same patients over and over again because of mental health issues and what have you. So they were overwhelmed before this. Now you've got the COVID is a very big problem in California, but still drug usage kills more. Although we are in a pandemic, we've been in an epidemic of grand proportions before. So now it's just the hospitals are dealing with so much at the same time, with the economic situation, depression on the rise, drug usage on the rise. People are very bleak about the future. The pandemic, although it's horrible, it's just one more thing to add to a very bad situation.
Yeah. And like we were talking about it before, that it also exists in Istanbul because Istanbul is a big city.
Sure.
And people with narcissistic issues and void and no community don't have the advantages that you have in the Muslim Jewish system.
Sure.
They use a lot of prescription drugs.
Yes.
And actually, what we have here is inner tools.
Mm-hmm.
The combination of community, family, and inner tools like prayer and things that you do that are connected to the cycle.
Sure. And
to poetry and to literature and to the God within you. The God is within you, as opposed to we're in a hostel. I live now in a hostel, which is called after its Kakadon, where they decided on. You are the historian here.
Sure. No, there was two there's many actually, but there's a few really famous ones. They had ecclesiastical councils where essentially
we're talking about the beginning of Christianity. The 4th century, the beginning
correct,
of the 4th century.
Yeah, about 4th and 5th century. Essentially, Christianity makes its way to what at the time is called Asia Minor, where the Roman Empire or the Byzantium Empire, which is essentially the global power at the time, called the United States at the time, is based. And one of the largest cities, it still is on earth, is this, we call it Istanbul today, but was called Constantinople. And here in this city where there was trade and wealth and influence, and it was just a very important place and still is. So this new philosophy makes its way here, and a lot of the Bible is written on this land. If you look at the chapters, Corinthians and Ephesians, and these are areas here, basically part of John. Exactly. So, and that the life of Jesus essentially is the New Testament, because his testament is
it's about Jesus.
Correct. And then it's people that never really met Jesus, but
the New Testament was written by people who never met him.
Exactly. So then they had many different ideas and philosophies are floating around, and people are talking and debating. So they call these councils of scholars, essentially, and then put these topics up for discussion. And certain ideologies won, and other ones were squashed. And these are still brought up in different Christian denominations of which one was right, or was it right to make that decision? But nevertheless, at the time, a certain ideology was accepted, and this became the main ideology, and therefore there was a lot of influence and wealth and institutions that focused on pushing this ideology.
The ideology.
So essentially here Jesus becomes a divine being, the Son of God, also God, He is debated of whether he's just another human being or is he God. The Council of Chalcedon, I believe, is where his divinity is solidified. The Council of Nicaea is where a lot of whether he's the Son of God is decided. Now, there's other topics, but all of these things are up for discussion. But it's just here that essentially Christianity is formed in the way that we know it today, where Jesus will save you, Jesus is God, it's here. It's not in its original where it comes from. So this area that we're in today is called Kadokoy, but in that period of time was called Chalcedon. And we happen to be in a hostel called Chalcedon. And there's still a church which sits on the actual area where that council happened. So Asia Minor still till this day plays.
So the idea is actually the opposite of like the idea behind like Judaism and Islam.
Correct.
It's like there is a human being is actually the personification of God.
Sure.
And it's external.
Sure.
It's only about him. We have nothing to do. There is nothing that connects us from within to any cycle. We don't have any community or rules about family life besides not having sex. Nothing besides that. So it's all external.
Correct.
So this leaves us, God is detached from us.
He's taken on a new name. It's Jesus, in Jesus' name. And
Jesus is human.
Believe in Jesus.
Flesh.
What would Jesus do? Essentially, it's as flesh. It's a person that apparently walked the earth as God, and then got crucified and resurrected, and he is God. And there is the Father. There's a lot of different ideologies, and a lot of it crosses. But in this day and age, it's just this being essentially has become the crux of a philosophy that has created many different sects and many beliefs around it. But essentially, it's here, the Christianity that many of us are familiar with, and many of the things we hear it's created. It's actually in this area.
So I want to conclude with something very relevant. Like only yesterday we had, how do you say it, the new president.
Oh,
the
yes.
New American,
the inauguration.
Yeah. Inauguration.
Yes.
Yeah. And I believe that like we live in the most Christian time ever. The whole world is Christian. And the way people see politicians or celebs, they see them as like almost like God.
Sure.
And it's all external.
Yes.
Like we idealize certain people as if they are God and they are going to solve our problems. And then somehow they're going to solve the world's problem. And we're talking about left-wingers, critical people, intellectuals. And today we can see that it's all internal. That it's all about class, but it's not about the money, it's about the culture.
Sure.
And we can see through two black women, that one is Kamala Harris, for instance, that they celebrate the fact that he is black, but actually, if you can see that you grew up in one of the most privileged families that you can have, with two like intellectual parents, and she had the tools to shape herself from within as a master and not a slave. And while they like to talk about the external appearance, it's actually internal. And you have a story about her, like she was that she, as a person, she was like an attorney.
She was the district attorney in the city that I grew up in, and she was part of her platform was being tough on crime and tough on gun violence. And I can touch on the story essentially that a friend of mine who was a gun collector, an incident happened where a gun had gone off, and nobody was hurt. Went into the floor, and then they basically arrested him and then let him go a couple days later because really nothing happened. 3 years after that incident, close to 3 years after that incident, they came back and arrested him and wanted to put him in jail for a very long time, although nothing had happened in 3 years, and that catapulted him into a depression, ultimately him taking his life, and how unfortunate that was. So I just recall his parents were being very upset and thought that the prosecution of an incident 3 years later that nothing really happen.
It was for political
It was
reasons.
for political points. That's all it was. It was just to say, hey, I am what I am. I'm tough on gun.
And it's not only this. We know that he was anti-minorities, anti-poor people.
She's known for making comments or even conducting herself in a way that favored Caucasian Americans. And many people in California, where over half the population wasn't born in the United States, want to feel that they're part of the system, and here's somebody that they thought would be a natural ally. In fact, it's just a sheep or I say a wolf in sheep's clothing, maybe, you know? And it's all for political points. It's all to show that doesn't matter what I look like on the exterior. What matters is who I support and who I stand with. And she got rewarded for that, I guess, you know? So for me, I just remember the parents and their pain and how for that week that they were with me, she was the crux of their anger because it was her who was prosecuting, it was her pushing, and nobody knew who she become later on, but they just tried to rationalize why 3 years later nothing happened, which she now tries to make a problem for somebody there's a million other problems happening now that she could address. She's focusing on something that is not that much of a problem, but she's trying to make it a problem, and all for political points, you know. And
so she has the tools that are like the bourgeoisie, the middle upper class. They have the tools of self-discipline, which in religion you get through the prayers, through I think, and a lot of regulations, nutrition and hygiene, all many like that you can get through our methods that you get from the religion and the bourgeoisie and the middle upper class. They have these tools and you are shaped since you were born, and then they tell you that it's like the classes are something external, like the color, your skin color, or femininity or masculinity. Not talking about the, you know, what we have in our minds, but just the genitals. And actually, this is not the truth, and this is why we live in such a. There is such a big lie, and I think it's like we're like it's so hypocrites. And
we are. I mean, America. I grew up there. It is a land of hypocrisy. It's a land that calls itself the land of freedom, but has the largest percentage of its citizens in jail than any other nation on earth. It's a land. It's a society built on stolen land. Its capital was built by slaves. It's just hypocrisy manifested. And we talked about like the Bible, the Christian Bible, and its influence. Well, yesterday at the inauguration, Biden had to swear on a book based upon what we just discussed was formulated here. So you could see the influence even if you fast forward, you know, let's just say 1,600 years.
And you know, on the note it says, "In God we trust," because this is the God. This is the American God.
Their belief of that God, and you know, it is.
It's actually it's a Christian country. When you understand that Protestantism is capitalism, that capitalism is Protestantism, that it's actually a religious method.
Because even any politician has to prove that they believe in God and that they hold these values and.
But then you find them, you know, they're all like.
It's hypocrisy. It's just a facade.
Because God in that method is external. It's not about real morality.
No.
It's just like don't appear in front of the cameras.
It's political points. I want to score political points with a portion of the population that happens to believe. But 5 minutes later, I will approve or even support another initiative or another type of theology that the specific theology that just told me they support me is against. And it's like, you're a friend to all. And I get it. That's what a politician is. But then what do you believe in? You just believe in what will get you elected. Not so much that do you stand for those things and do you believe in them. The United States, no. The United States, it's about what's politically valuable. And who, you know, Trump, people hate him, but he was able to take advantage of people's beliefs. Even though he didn't live his life in any way according to them, they were just to show you. You could tell people what they want to hear and they'll believe you. That's just how naive so many people are.
But also it's also like a matter of the media that is like It is a channel, and we don't have real community.
Sure.
In a community, when we have the leaders, we can. It's like the gossip tells us, you know, and we really know them. Then we can pick our own leaders. But
Sure.
when it's like abstract, and a lot of tribes are connected together through the abstract idea of a nation, then the media is the channel, and the media, of course, is like governed by financial interests and not our interests, because there is no community, and the media is actually a community of its own, of the middle upper class tribe. So it's like we cannot have the truth.
Sure.
So yeah. So now the world is one, and yeah. Let's hope that the world will be come to its senses and be divided into tribes and communities. And
what's going to happen?
I don't know.
Hope the power center
no one
leaves.
knows.
You know, nobody knows.
No one knows.
I'm just tired of the United States being seen as the promised land, and I'm telling you, somebody who grew up there is now. It's everything but.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, if people keep giving it more credence and more power than it deserves, we're essentially creating our own invisible prison. And that problem, I think, will come back to haunt us, where people want to leave their homes, their families, their communities that are good for them to go to some sort of artificial promised land, only to find that they've been lied to.
Yeah.
And they just don't know it yet until it's too late, or they're, you know, so I would just tell people to be cautious and be aware and realize what something is and what something isn't.
No, it's wrong. I'd like they rule. They had this dictatorship that was called part of bread and entertainment. So the U.S. is like Hollywood. This is also the Jewish contribution. So now the economy system is collapsing. And also the entertainment. So what we are doing now, like I believe that this is like through the net, through social media, is part of like the new world that needs to be created. It's like other channels to thoughts and ideas, and it's it's realistic and
I know.
okay.
That's good. It's been a good discussion.
Yeah. Just, you know.
Just talking about different topics and brainstorming.
Yeah, it's like it's a process. It's a journey.
Of course.
Like there are no answers.
Correct.
But at least, you know, it's like rethinking, and it's all, that's the beginning of every process. It's chaos.
Sure.
And it's chaotic now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, we just don't know. Everybody's living a day at a time. And
God is not present in the world, like maybe he used to be.
Not in the same way. It's not,
because we are not connected, because I believe that Judaism and Islam, they offer a comprehensive system.
Sure.
And if it's not comprehensive, then you cannot have real community, like Jewish and Muslim community, and you cannot really work, connect to God from within. So, and you know, you used to work in finance, that the whole economic system is based on loans and interest.
Sure.
And the Muslim system and the Jewish for the Jews is based, the basic thing is no debt system. And if the whole banking system and everything works on the debt system, so we cannot be really connected to God. And I believe that God will be one where we will be connected to communities and individual work. And now the world is like the furthest that it could be from God.
We're debt slaves. And you tell people, like, you know, I got to wake up and go to work tomorrow. Why? To better your life? No, because I have bills. Those bills are debts. Those debts force you to do a lot of things you don't want to do. You're a slave.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you don't go to work and you don't pay those bills, everything you have, you lose. You're a slave.
And also everything is connected to work. It's not only, it's like your daily routine, the way to meet people, like the sense of meaning,
of course.
Everything, because this is our identity and our daily life. This is also the Protestant, it's also Protestant. And now with COVID, everything is shaking up. A lot of unnecessary jobs, and this is the chaos that is going on. And now we don't really need to work that much.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna need to find like new forms of communicating and
Sure.
filling our lives with meaning and human relations.
Mm-hmm.
And this is it's interesting things are happening in Istanbul.
I agree. I like it. I came here for a 3-week vacation. Here I am 10 months later, so you know, I can get on a plane tonight and go anywhere pretty much that allows me to, and I choose to stay. So it's an interesting time.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and Istanbul is.
It's a vibrant, large megalopolis. A lot of history, you know, and also part of the future as well.
Yeah.
So
I hope this. I believe this is the Middle East, Mediterranean
Sure.
cultures are going to offer this future.
I mean, they still influence people. I mean, yesterday the president of the United States swore on a book from this region.
Yeah.
Because you have to make a promise to your people based upon the philosophy of something from this part of the world. So the influence is still there. It's just, can it recapture it again? Not just based on the book, but its actions, its influence, its projection of, you know, power, intellect. My point is that, you know, just like back then, those councils made those decisions. Could something happen in this era, in our lifetime, that in 100, 1,000, whatever years from now, people can look back at it and say, that's such an important, pivotal moment that changed human history forever. Human history has been shaped. I mean, a big part of it.
Yeah.
You know. Sure.
I believe that this was the past, and this will be the future of this area.
Sure.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
See you next week.
Inshallah.
I will try to stick to the schedule
Inshallah.
as much as
God willing. Inshallah.
God willing, always God willing. Bye.